We begin the current Daf, Masechta Shabbos Daf Nun Tes. We begin 3 lines Daf at the top of the Yomid. We're in the middle of a discussion of the previous Daf regarding the halacha. If something has a bell and it loses the clapper, that bell is still going to have the halacha of Tumah. Ashir is co-sponsored by Kalzich and Yecheskel, Torah Anytime, and Daf Achaim. We thank the Eilam joining us, being patient with us on the Zoom. So the idea we're going to discuss in today's daf, again, like we said, is a continuation. Why a bell whose clapper was removed is susceptible to tumah. Similarly, it's a broken kli. We know a kli, although it's a kli, it's makabel tumah. Once it breaks, it loses status of tumah. Why is it, like the Bryce in the previous daf, adayin tumas nalein? Additionally, we're going to continue with the halacha of the Mishnah, which spoke about bameh isha yaitzer, regarding the adornments of a woman, which we said, although biblical is permitted for her to go out like that, because it's a tachshit. However, since we're concerned she might take it off and show it off, and then she might come to carry dalamas and shusarabim. So some of those items, one was an adornment that's like a golden city of Yerushalayim. Additionally, on Namad Beis, we can discuss parenthetical information that Rav was able to deduce by Levi's arrival in Nardah. He said, hey, why did he come? He's usually near Yisrael. It must have been that someone died and a new Rosh Hashiva came, and so on, a few other ideas. Additionally, some of the important terms and concepts we can discuss is what's known as Me'ein Malacha Rishayna, which, as we discussed with regarding the laws of Tumah, has to be a kli, has to be a vessel. Now, if it breaks, so it's a shever kli, it's not a kli, no, it's not makabel tumah. Now, there's a discussion, there's an opinion that holds, it's not enough that it could retain some utility as a kli when it breaks. It has to be me'ein malach rishon, it has to retain the semblance of its original work that it did. Which is, if let's say the bell, which its utility, as we discussed, that's the Bryce in the previous stuff that we're discussing, we discussed different types of bells, even by a human being, that of the child is supposed to make noise. So when the clapper is removed, seemingly it shouldn't be a kli anymore. No, as long as it has a semblance of its original status of making noise, like it could be banged on the pot, then it's going to retain its tumah. But even if it could be used in some other form of malacha, that wouldn't give it a status of a kli. Additionally, we can discuss regarding tumas medris, that a tumah transmitted by a zav, a zava, or a nida, when they sit on something made for sinning, even if they never directly touch it, but just the fact that they are sitting on something will give it that halacha of tumas medris. So we begin the current daf, 3 lines down at the top of the Yomid, where, again, like we said, the Gemara is discussing why a bell whose clapper is removed retained its tumah. Like we said, that we were discussing the previous daf, because we discussed one of the items in the Mishnah was the kabul. Said a woman cannot go out with the kabul. We had a machlekes, what's the kabul? We had, is it regarding like a woolen cap, or is it, did we say, it's a kavla da'avda? What's a kavla da'avda? That's the chaysim shebetzavari. That's the seal of the emblem on his neck, or there's one on his garment, but that's what we're saying, that she, maidservant, cannot go out with that on Shabbos. That got us into a discussion regarding a brisa that discusses the emblem on the neck of the person, the slave, and on his garment, and then also as it relates to laws of Tumah, and also spoke about regarding animals too. And in that discussion came up the zug, the bells, as we said, not only regarding the emblems, but regarding the bells, and that was where we had a contradiction regarding, is a bell going to be tamei or not, and that we got into discussion regarding things that its specific utility, unlike that of an eved, where it's as a takshit. We came to those types of bells like that are used to specifically make noise, like for a cradle, or for the mortar, or for the coverings of the svarm, and for little children, that we said that no, only if it has a bell it's going to be tamei, but if it doesn't have a bell it's not going to be. But that's what the brisa ended off, which is the topic of our daf, that starts off, but nitlu in belayim, but if the clapper is taken away, that adayin tumas nalein, it's still going to have the tumah. And that the question was, why? Why should it still have the tumah? You told me it's only made for making noise, so why if the clapper is taken away, you agree that if it doesn't have it yet, it's not tumah. But that's because it's gomei kli, it's not finished yet. But why then when it's removed, does it still have the tumah? So we had 2 interpretations from the previous stuff. We had Abai, he says, since a regular person could put it back, so then it's not considered broken yet. It comes in, comes out. That's not a broken vessel, and that's why it's still makabel tumah. Rava said, since it still has a semblance of its original function, because although it doesn't make noise by banging it with the clapper inside, but you can still use the bell to bang on, like, let's say, type of earthenware thing, as on contrast, like Rashi explains from the clapper. The clapper, you're right, is considered a broken vessel, but the bell part could still make noise by banging. That's why it's still makabel tumah. Those are the 2 interpretations we had the previous time, and that's where we continue with a 3rd interpretation. Rabbi Yechanan Amar, he says, since you could use the bell to go ahead and give a child water to drink, it's a receptacle. You could take the bell and give the child something to. So it still has some form of functionality. So therefore, it's still a kli, and therefore it's makabel tumah. That's the third interpretation. On that, as the Gemara, what? Rabbi Yechon does not require that for something to retain its tumah, it's not only enough, it's sufficient that it can be used in the capacity as a kli. It has to have the capacity, a semblance of its original function. And here, that's not the original function. Yes, it's a kli, you could drink from it, but what was the bell's utility beforehand? It was to make noise. That's not its function right now. It's being used as being used for drinking. And is that really so that he holds that it doesn't need Mei Malach Rishayna? But Vatanya, we learned in the Braisa, which is an extended discussion, but at the end we'll see that he does require Mei Malach Rishayna. Therefore, that seems to contradict what we're quoting from Rabbi Yechon. What's the discussion? So the Gemara is as follows. It's a pasuk in Vayikra Tezvav, which the beginning of the pasuk there begins with the halacha of a zav. And it's talking about the tumah of medris, which is whatever zav, it says v'chol mishkav, any bed that the zav sits on, and v'chol kli asher yeshiv alav, whatever bed he lays on, or any vessel asher yeshiv alav, v'goymer, that he sits on, is going to be tamei. That's what's known, as we said, the tumah of medris, which just by sitting on it, even though not touching it, it has the ava tumah as the zav, the zava, the nida themselves. Now, continues the Braisa. Now, Yochel, you would think that every vessel is included, even if it's not made for sitting. So let's say, says the Braisa, kafasa. Let's say you have a saw-sized barrel, which is used for some type of work, and the zav sits on it. Or let's say kafa tarkiv. Tarkiv is also a measurement type of a barrel, which is, tarkiv is a half a saw, because tarkiv is two words. It's trei v'kav. Trei means two kav, and v'kav is one kav. That's three kav, which I have to saw. But be that as it may, we're talking about things that are generally used for work. And let's say he turns it upside down, and he sits on it. You would think, hey, tamei, that the vessel would be tamei because you have the tumah of medris, which is when the zava, the nida, they sit on something. Tamalema, no, that's what pasuk teaches. Asher yeshiv alav azav, that the zav sits on. Meaning, from the fact that it doesn't say, let's say, by the bedding, asher shachav, that he lay, or by the sitting, it doesn't say asher yashav, that he sat. No, it says in the present future tense, yishkav, he will lay, yeshiv, he will sit. Sounds like misha meyuchad liyeshiva. It's only something that's designated for sitting purposes that the person always sits on, and that's the thing that he always lays on, which is something that's designated for laying and for sitting. And therefore, just the same thing as we say regarding sitting, the same thing as regarding laying, which tells us that it has to be something designated for sitting or laying. Yotzezeh, that excludes this barrel, where they tell him, Amoid, v'nasam lachtenu, get up, we need to do our work with it. This is not meant for sitting. What are you doing sitting on this thing? That type of thing is not going to have a tumah of medrash. That's what the Braisa says. Now, in regards to this halacha, what's known as Amoid v'nasam lachtenu, we have a machlokes amiram, which one of them is going to be Rabbi Yechanan, and that's going to show us the question that we're asking. What's the machlokes? So Rabbi Lazar, he says, B'medrasis amrim. Only regarding what the pasuk that the Braisa is quoting, regarding the tumah of medras, which is when someone who has a tumah out of their body, which is like a zav, some type of discharge. That's where we say the halacha of amoid v'nasam lachtenu. Get up, and we're going to do our work. Now, it's a little bit complicated, and this is Rashi's approach to the sugya, that there's two types of really different halachas that are included in this terminology, this wording of amoid v'nasam lachtenu. What is that? So there's the idea we were expounding up until now. What's called in the beginning of the tumah. We tell the person, this thing that you're sitting on is not tamei medras. It's not becoming an avatum because it's not meant for sitting purposes. That's one halacha. Then there's what's called seif tamei, at the end of something being tamei. For example, let's say you have something that's 3 by 3 tfachim, which is usable for sitting purposes, and it became tamei as a medras, meaning a zaba nida sat on it and was meant for sitting, and became an avatum. But now it's split. It broke. It's split in half. It's going to be tahar from the tumah of medras. Why? So this is where you have to read the words in a very different way. We tell the person right now, get up and let us do melachtoi amoid v'nasam lachtenu harishayna. What does that mean to say? Meaning, up until now it was fit for sitting. Now it's not fit for sitting anymore. It's too small. So therefore it's going to be tar from tumah of medras. Because although now, what do you mean? Each half of this thing, whatever you're sitting on, let's say this cushion, is 3 by 3 it's bais, and it's still considered a kli for the laws of Mimim Kabel Tumah, which it doesn't have to have 3 by 3 hand breath. It's enough to be 3 by 3 finger breaths. But still, from the status of being an avatum of medris, it became purified. So it's just interesting how to read the words, and Taisus does find this difficult, but that's how Rashi's approach to the sugya is. Amoid v'nasam l'achteinu means two different things. It means, like we said regarding the beginning of the Tumah, which we say, what are you doing sitting on that? Amoid, get up. V'nasam l'achteinu, we want to do our work. It's not meant for medris. This thing that you're sitting on, this barrel, is not becoming to medris. Yazav need to sit in this. Doesn't make a difference. It's not meant for sitting. The person says asher yeshav that he sits on, and it's not meant for sitting. Then it's a very different, but it's including the same words. Let's say you had something meant for sitting, a type of a cushion. It was 3x3 handbreadths. Now it got torn in half, but it's still the size of being a kli. We say, although it had the tumah of medris, it lost the halacha being makabel tumah medris. Why? Because we say, get up, amoid, v'nasam l'achteinu, and we want to do what it originally was meant to be used for. And we can't, because it's too small to sit on. So though it's a kli, we say it's a shever kli, and now it's not going to have the tumah of medris anymore. So those two halachas are included in that. And it's actually, generally this halacha is quoted in the first din, but here in our sugya you're actually quoting primarily on the second din. Now, says Rabbi Lazar, so that halacha is only by tumas medris. But we don't say regarding the ava tumah. Of betimei meis, when someone came in contact with a dead person, where it also has the tumah of becoming an ava tumah, we don't say over there, amoid v'nasam l'achteinu. Get up, and we want to do our work, which again, we're focusing primarily on the second halacha that we said. In other words, if let's say a vessel became tumah touching a dead person. A dead person is the highest level of tumah. It's called aviyah v'isa tumah. So whatever touches it, whether it be a person or a vessel, that thing becomes an ava tumah. So which is the same thing as a medris. A medris is also unique, which is a zav nida. Generally, when you touch something, when you have a tumah, and then it transmits to something else, it goes down a level. By medris, although the zav nida is ava tumah, what they sit on, the medris is also ava tumah. Now, so here we're talking about something, there's also parallel, that's an ava tumah, a vessel. If it became tumah and it broke, and it's still fit for any type of functionality, and it's not a semblance of its original functionality of what it was tamei, it's still going to be tamei, says Rabbi Lazar. And we don't say this second version of what we call amoid v'nasam l'achteinu, that get up and we want to be able to do what it was originally meant for. In other words, what would that say? Since it's not fit for that original status, it's going to be tar. No, we don't say that. And says Rashi, for sure we don't say the first version of its original contraction of tumah, where we don't say get up and let us use what it's originally meant for, because that would say if it's not designated for a dead person, it's not going to be kabel tumas mes. You can't say that, because by tumas mes it says kli maisa, which is any vessel that's a functionality, even if it's not meant for a mes. You wouldn't say, oh, it has to be designated for a mes, like a coffin to be makabel tumah of mes. We don't say that. So we don't say either one of these halachas about moed v'nasam l'achteinu. So it could be confusing, but that's why we say that in this context, there's two different halachas that we're being mentioning. There's the general context that we use it for, which is medris, which is that if it's not meant for sitting, it's not makabel tumah. And then there's another one which, even if it was tumah medris, like some type of a shiur, but if it broke in half, it cannot be used for what it originally was used for, even though it's still a kli. It's not going to be makabel, it's not going to have, it's going to lose the tumah of medris. So that's Rabbi Lazar, but by mes, let's say by tumas mes, which somebody became tumah from a dead person, it's not going to have either one of those. It's not going to have the original one, which is, we don't say only if it's meant for dead people is it makabel tumas mes. We know every kli is makabel tumas mes. And it doesn't have the second halacha either, which is, let's say it became tumah from a mes, and now let's say it broke and it cannot be used in its original functionality. It doesn't make a difference. As long as it's still a kli, it's going to have the tumah of tumas mes. That's Rabbi Lazar. Now the main reason why we're bringing this in is the second Amar. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he disagrees. He says, no, even by tamei mes, not only by tumas mes, just like the Bryce is talking about, even by something that became tamei, this vessel became tamei from a dead person, we say there also, amoid v'nasam l'achteinu, get up, and we want to do its original work that we had done with it. And that is, if that vessel that became tamei from a dead person cannot be used in its original functionality, it's actually going to be tar. Now, as Rashi points out, obviously, the halacha of Rabbi Yechon is only talking about the second halacha of if a vessel became tamei and it broke, that's going to be purified, as we're explaining, because you can't explain it in the context that we usually say about Tumas Medrash, and to say that any vessel that's not designated for a dead person is not going to have a Tumah from a dead person, because the Pasuk in Midbar Yates says, V'hiz ala oil val kol akeim, that you have to purify anything that came in contact with a dead person, and it says kol akeim, any vessel. So obviously we're not talking about the first halacha of a mikveh nas malchtenu. Oh, this is not meant for a dead person, so it's not getting Tumas Mes. No, we don't say only coffin or whatever those things, every vessel. But we mean regarding the second halacha, that says Rabbi Yochanan, that you're going to say amoy v'nas malchtenu, which means harishayna. It's original functionality. So what do you see from this brayso? You see that Rabbi Yochanan requires me'ein malacha rishayna, even by Tamei Meis, which is what we're talking about, of the bell from the previous daf, that Rabbi Yochanan requires a semblance of its original function. This bell, he cannot say it's going to have a tumah of mess, even though it lost its clapper, because you could use it to give a child to drink water. Even though it has some form of functionality, but it's not its original functionality. Its original functionality was to make noise. How could you tell me that that's going to have it retain its tumah? You see that he says in this explanation of this brisa that even by Tamei Meis, you say Amoid v'nasim lachtenu harishayna has to keep its original status, and that's not its original function, even though it has some function. So the Gemara says you're right. Epach kamaisa. You have to switch around the first machlokes where we quoted, where either that was what we Ravo, like Rashi says Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina. Rabbi Yossi Chanina was the one who said that you have to go ahead and have original function, that it could go ahead and be banged on the earthenware vessel. Rabbi Yochanan was the one who was quoted as saying that you, as long as you give it to drink to the child, you have to switch that around. Rabbi Yochanan is the one who requires me'ein malacha rishayna. He's what, with the interpretation from the previous daf, that is because you could still bang on the earthenware vessel, can make noise. And Rava, he's the one, or Rabbi Yisrael Chanina, he's the one that says no, it does not require me'ein malacha rishayna. It's enough that you give a child to drink. Says the Gemara. Why do you see, we have a contradiction in Rabbi Yochanan. Why do you see fit necessarily to switch around the first opinion? Maybe switch around the second ones. Maybe actually Rabbi Yochanan does not require Mein Malach Rishayna and switch around, say Rabbi Lazar is Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yochanan is Rabbi Lazar. Maybe he's the one who says that no, by Tamei Meis you don't say Moed Benasim Lachtenu. Why are you necessarily switching around him with Rabbi Yisrael Rabbi Chanina? Says we know, we already established Rabbi Yochanan, the Ba'i Me'ein Malacha Rishayna. We know he requires, as we just quoted, that you have to have the original semblance of its functionality, and therefore we have to switch around the first opinion that it couldn't have been Rabbi Yochanan that said, because that's not its original functionality, and that's why we switch around the first machlokes, not the second machlokes. Where do we see Rabbi Yochanan requires a semblance of its original function? The Tanya, which actually a Mishnah Masechtas Kedel. Mishnah is discussing a sandal shal behema. It's like what we have with horseshoes. So the animals would have these types of shoes that their hooves should not get harmed with the stones that they're stepping over. If it was shalmatech, if it was made out of metal, which Tais explained because if it would be out of wood, then it wouldn't have the function of all the things we're going to explain shortly, what the function it could have, because the wooden shoes get ruined by the animals, but the metal ones, they retain its function. So if you have metal animal shoes, so tamei, they're mekabel tama. On that the question is, lamai chazi, what do you mean? What are they fit for? In other words, if you think because it's a shoe of an animal, but as we established in the previous daf, there's no takshut for behema. An animal's utility of something does not give it a status of a kli. It has to have some type of human function. What do animal shoes have in the form of a human function to be considered as a kli? So you have three different interpretations why a metal animal shoe is susceptible to tumah. Amar Rabbi says, because you could take off the shoes, and people are in the wartime, they're desperate, and they could take it off to drink water because it has some type of a concave, some type of receptacle, and therefore that gives it a human function. From Chaninam he says, he says, oh, you could take it to put oil in it, anoint with it in the wartime. Rabbi Yochanan, he says, and this is the primary reason why we bring this in, says, when he's running away from battle, he could put those animal shoes on his own feet, he could run on thorns and thistles, because those are good heavy metal shoes, they're going to protect his feet, so therefore that's its functionality. But one thing we see from there is that Rabbi Yochanan, he's the most stringent, in the sense of that he requires that the human function is going to be as a sandal, and that if it wasn't fit for putting on the shoes, which is malachta harishayna, Rabbi Yochanan would not have said it's going to be tamei, because he requires the original function, which was It was made for shoes. So Rabbi Yochanan holds the only way it's going to have the tumah is if it's being used in the function of shoes. He does not hold like Rav and Rabbi Chanina. And therefore, since we see that he holds that it has to have Me'in Malach Rishayna, that's why we switched around. The first machlokes is not the second machlokes. Like we said, Rabbi Yochanan is not the one who says, rather, he's like what we quoted Rabbi Chanina, that you could bang it on the earthenware pot, even without the clapper, that's why it still has the tumah. And because like we saw, that as the other machlokes Rabbi Elazar, that he says that you say Amoid v'nasam lachtein harishayna, and as we just proved right now, because he requires malacha rishayna. Now, parenthetical, once we introduce this machlokes, the Gemara says, "My bein Rav l'Reb Chanina." What's the difference between if it's fit to drink water from it or to anoint oil? It sounds like the same thing. Why do we need their interpretations? So that says the Gemara, the difference between them is if it's repulsive. In other words, according to Rav, it's not going to be metame anymore because you can't drink from it. It's disgusting. But according to Rav, but according to Reb Chanina, it doesn't make a difference. When you're anointing, you don't need something to be clean. Now, Rashi explains that Rav does not say like Reb Chanina because he holds that in wartime, no one's bringing oil to start anointing themselves, and therefore that's not going to be a qualification. It has to be able to be drink. And additionally, Rashi says that also would be the difference between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. That obviously that if it's disgusting, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you could still run with it. According to Rav, that would not be something that you would drink from. And says the Gemara, what's been Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina? What's in between these second interpretation? Rabbi Yochanan who says that you use it to run away with, and Rabbi Chanina who says that you use it to anoint oil. The difference between them is that it's heavy. If it's heavy, you could use to anoint oil, but you're not running with those type of shoes. It's not going to be so feasible, and therefore, according to Rabbi Yochanan, would not be valid. According to Chanina, that would be valid. Now we continue with the halacha of the Mishnah that said v'loy be'ir shel zav. We said all these halachas of the Mishnah were items that really biblically permitted to go out with, that a woman wears. First few were problematic because she's going to take it off and because she has to go to the mikveh, and therefore it's chatzitza. But the rest of them were all, she's going to take it off because she wants to show it off to her friends. And then once she's carrying it, once she's holding it, she might forget, she might carry it down to the rabbin. The rabbinically we said you cannot go out with it. One of them was the city of gold. Says Gemara, my be'ir shel zav, what's this jewelry, what's this ornament of the city of gold? So Rabbi Yochanan says it's Yerushalayim Didahava. It's a golden ornament with a design of Yerushalayim. Now, we have a machlekes, Rashi and Taisus. Rashi in the Mishnah said it's some type of a clasp, and Taisus disagrees. He says because we find the Gemara in Seited of Memtesima Beis says that regarding the Ataris of the Kalas, it discusses over there the Ir Shel Zav. So it sounds like it's some type of a crown. And therefore, Taisus disagrees, and it says like it's a tiara, some type of a crown. And we have here an actual Ir Shel Zav. Thank you to Meir Rapperg, who sent us this picture, that this is obviously is like the way Taisus holds, that this was a golden tiara that they would wear. And so that's the machlekes Rashi and Taisus. Rashi holds it's a clasp, and Taisus holds that it's a crown. Now, actually, as a Ketitah Medbeis, this is a famous Gemara in the Durham, as Kida'avile Rabbi Kiva LeDebeis, like Rabbi Kiva did for his wife, that he promised her that he's going to get her Ir Shel Zav, and like a good husband, he did, and he came through for the daughter of Kabbalah Savu, and he gave her this Ir Shel Zav. Now, we have a machlekes, it's three machlekes regarding this halacha. Our Mishnah said that it's really biblically permitted because it's a tachshit, but rabbinically she cannot go out with it because she might come to take it off and show it off and say, look what my husband got me. And when she's holding it, she might just continue walking and schmoozing, and guess what? She was over on Haitzah and Rosh Hashanah. But actually, the Gemara brings a turn upon a brisa that quotes it as a three machlekes, the status of this Ir Shel Zav. The Tanna Kama says, Lo yiseitzi isha be'ir shel zav. A woman does not allowed to go out with this gold, this city of gold. V'myatzeh, she goes out, chayev eschata, she chayev echatas divrei meir. Now, the primary Rishonim here don't say why, but there are some of the first saying why would it be a problem, as we're going to explain, is because actually it's not meant as a tachshit. It's actually remembered as a zecha for the churban of Yerushalayim, and that's why it was not considered a jewelry. But the Gemara will explain that why that is. Chayev echat is literally carrying a masa. The sages say, Loi says, no, she shouldn't go out, but miyatzah p'tur, but if she goes out, she's going to be pater, which is like the halacha of our Mishnah. And Rabbi Elazar, he says, Yoitzi isha be'ir shel zav l'ketchila. He says she could even go out l'ketchila. Initially, it's permitted to go out with the Ir Shel Zav. So it says, what is the machlekes of these three opinions regarding either chayev chatas, or no, not go out but pater, or you can even go out l'ketchila? Says the Gemara as follows: Ramei Yisrael he holds masahu. It's a load, it's a yoke, it's also midiraisa, it's not a tachshit like we explained because it wasn't really meant as a tachshit, it was meant as a sign of remembering Yerushalayim, and just they made it beautiful, but that's not considered a tachshit, and therefore that was considered an issa deraisa. Rabban Sarva, they hold no tachshit. It was a jewelry, But Dilma Shalfa Machavile, like old jewelry, that she might take it off to show it to her friends, V'asla to she's going to come to carry it. And then rabbinically we say not to take it, but therefore if you do it, you're not chayav b'chatas. And but whereas Rebbe Lezer, Savar, he held, no. Man darkela meipik b'yishal zav. Who usually goes out with the city of gold? Isha chashuva, only a wealthy, respected woman. The Isha chashuva l'mishalfa machave. A wealthy woman's not going to take it off and show it off because that doesn't pass. I mean, she's not going to go to show it off. She walks around, and therefore she's not going to show it off, and therefore he wasn't concerned for showing it off, and that's why he holds even like it's chilish to go out with. A similar type of a discussion, the Gemara brings this kalila, which was actually, I think this was actually the tiara. I think we have a different one for the Ishal Zav. The kalila was also worn on the forehead that was from ear to ear, and some type of a tiara, which was a plate of gold. Now there were those that would be made out of silk that would be spun with gold, as we're going to see. That's going to be an important discussion. But regarding this tiara, Rav says it's forbidden for her to go out with that, Rosh Rav. Or Shmuel says it's permitted. So the Gemara qualifies as follows. There's two different versions of this machlekes. The anischa, of the one that was a plate that was made totally from metal, either gold or silver, which was something that's hammered out, like the picture we showed. So kulam alei pliga de aser. No one's going to disagree that it's going to be aser. Why? Because since it's chashuv, so we're concerned that she might come to take it off and show it off to her friends. Ki pligi, when do they disagree? That is the aruksa. That's this version. That is when it's made out of fabric, which is a strap which is adorned with gold and precious gems. But it's actually primarily made out of fabric. That's where we have a machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Mar Sava, Rav held that anischa, the metal plate that is in it, that's the ikud, that's the primary, and therefore it's still considered chashav to the woman, and therefore she's going to come to take it off and show it off. Umar Sava Shmuel held that, no, he says permitted because aruk tzikr. The band is the primary for the jewelry, and if it's not chashav, and therefore she's not going to show it off. So that's interesting, meaning this version holds, all agree that, I think it's this version, that, whatever, the one version, this version says that the precious metals, everyone agree it's going to be aser, because it's more likely to be shown off, but the machlekes is regarding fabric with gold and precious stones, that Rav says forbidden because the primary is the plate, is the gold. So it's still that chashav a thing. Shmuel said, no, the primary with this one is ultimately the fabric, and therefore it's not chashav, and therefore she's not going to come to show it off. That's one version. Then there's another version where Rav Ashi Masni Lekula, he actually interprets the machlekes more leniently. He says, no, the aruksa, the one that's made out of fabric, to kol amalei plegi deshari. No one's going to disagree that's permitted because no, the primary is the fabric. So everyone's going to hold its mutter because it's less likely to be shown off. Ki pligi da niska, their whole machlekes was regarding the one that's totally a plate of gold. What's machlekes? And this is why it's exactly like the previous Gemara's discussion. Marsav Rav held it's aser because the mashalfa machavit. It's only made out of, it's a plate of gold. It's very chashuv. It's beautiful. She might take it over and show it off. Aslat tu, she's going to come to carry it. But Marsav Shmuel held his mutter. Why is it mutter? Because it says man darkele meipek b'klila. Who usually goes out with that beautiful tiara? Isha chashuva, a distinguished woman. Isha chashuva l'shalfa machavit. Distinguished woman, not going to take it off and show it off, and therefore you could go out. That beautiful jewelry. That everyone's saying, wow, look what you got. She's just going to go. She's not taking it off. Now, as Tosfos points out, a very important concept. He says, yes, specifically by Kalila Shmuel says it's permitted. And so too in the previous Gemara of Rabbi Eliezer, specifically by the Irshal Zav, because not all women have that type of jewelry. Who usually wears it? Only in Isha Chashuva. You have to be in the upper echelons of having that type of jewelry. But whereas other jewelry, yes, even a Isha Chashuva is forbidden to go out with because we don't differentiate. Here it's only those Isha Chashubas, only they have these types of jewelries, therefore we don't make that Gezerah according to Shmuel and according to Eliezer, and therefore they're permitted to go out with that. Now the Gemara brings a proof to this last version, that the more lenient interpretation, Amalei Rav Shmuel Bar Chan Rav Yosef, he says, Beferish Amritlan Mishmei de Rav, you explicitly told us the name of Rav. Why is he telling him what he told us? Because that he was telling Rav Yosef, as many times mentioned in Shas, that before you got sick, before you got your learning, you told us Kalil Lashari, in the name of Rav, that the tiara is permitted. Now, obviously, and this is what Rashi explains, that's what he's coming to say is that the primary interpretation of the machlekes Rav and Shmuel is the way Rav Ashi said it. He said that the machlekes is regarding the nischa, When it's a precious metal, when it's a hammered piece of metal, that's where they have the machlokes, and only there does Rav say it's aser. But by aruksa, when it's made out of fabric, Rav agrees it's going to be permitted. So then you could explain when Rabbi Yosef said in the name of Rav that the tiara is permitted, was that of the aruksa, of the fabric. Because if you say like the first version that everyone agrees by naskha is forbidden, and only aruksa is the machlokes, then Rav never has a case of a tiara that's permitted. But Rabbi Yosef told them that Rav holds a tiara is permitted. Obviously, it's like the second version that because the machlokes is only by the naskha, by the plate, but by the fabric, then even Rav agrees it's permitted, and that was the case of the tiara that he permitted. Now, continuing on this theme regarding the permissibility of the tiara, so the Gemara brings that Amr li Rav, they said to Rav, Asa gava Rabba arichel narda. A distinguished, a great tall person came to Narda. Umitla, and he's limping. V'darshan, he expounded klila shari, a tiara is permitted. And the Mefarshim say it doesn't say clearly which tiara is he talking about. It doesn't tell us when the machlokes is Rav and Shmuel. But be that as it may, he said that the tiara is permitted. At that Amar, so Rav said, Man gava Rabba richa ditla. Wait a second. Who's a great person that's tall and limps? That's Levi. And we know that Levi limps, as the Gemara tells in Sukkah, because he showed what Kida is in front of Rebbe, which is a certain type of bowing down, and you bow down from the waist, which could pull a certain muscle, and that made him start limping. And obviously, and he knows that he's tall. So obviously, Shema Minah says Rav, obviously I could infer and deduce the following idea. Before we say what he deduced, the Gemara Ksubis tells us in Kuf Gimel Mabez that when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi passed away, he said, Reb Chanina Bar Chama, Yeshe B'Reish, he's going to be the Rosh Hashiva. Now, Reb Chanina did not accept upon himself the post of Rosh Hashiva because Reb Efes was 2.5 years older than him. So he didn't want to take the post. So Reb Efes became the Rosh Hashiva. Now, the problem is, since Reb Chanina was Chashiv, as we see, he was really supposed to be the Rosh Hashiva, so he didn't come into the base of Medrash, and rather he sat on the outside. Now, because of his honor, Levi didn't want Reb Chanina to sit by himself, so Levi sat outside with him. So on that says Rav, he says, wait a second, Levi is coming here to Narda, he came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Obviously, Nach Nafshid Reb Office. Obviously, Reb Office, who was the Rosh Hashiva till now, passed away. V'yasa Reb Chanina Bereisha, must have been now Reb Chanina became the Rosh Hashiva. V'loi hava le'inish le'levi le'mesav gabe. And Levi did not have anyone to sit outside anymore with, because, as Rashi explains, Reb Chanina wasn't greater than Levi, not in Torah knowledge and not in years, and therefore Levi was not going to be subservient to Reb Chanina and going to his shiur, so he was going to stay outside. So, but he had no one to sit outside with, and therefore v'koslach, and that's why he came over here to Bavel, because he wasn't going to stay outside by himself. That the Gemara wonders, how did Rav deduce that? V'dima nach nafshid Reb Chanina. Maybe Reb Chanina passed away. Reb Office could koi, and Reb Office was, as he always was, still the Rosh Hashiva. And v'loy havalei inish Levi lemesim gabe, and Levi didn't have anyone to sit outside because his chavrusa Reb Chanina passed away. V'koslach, and maybe that's why he came over here. How do you know Reb Efes passed away? Says the Gemara, no. And Misi Reb Chanina Shachav, if Reb Chanina had passed away, Levi to Reb Rosh Reb Efes, Mechav have a chayfalei, he would have been subservient and subordinate to him because Reb Efes was older than him. V'su, moreover, another proof Rav had was Reb Chanina loisagi de lemalch. It's not possible Reb Chanina was not going to be at some point the Rosh Hashiva. So it can't be that Reb Efes was still there and Reb Chanina passed away. Because Techiava Kanicha Nafshid Rebbe, like we quoted before from the Gemara in Saita, in the Seftik Subis, when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was passing away, Amar he said, Chanina b'Reb Chama, Yesa b'Reish. He's going to be the Rosh Hashiva. Now, although he didn't accept the post, but Ksivu b'Tzadikim, it says regarding the righteous, the pasuk in Eiv. V'sigzer Omer, he says a decree, v'yakum loch v'goymer, and it stands for him. Meaning to say, a tzaddik says something, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu fulfills it, and therefore it has to be that Reb Chanina was going to be the Rosh Hashiva, and therefore that's how Rav knew. That must have been Reb Efes passed away, Reb Chanina became Rosh Hashiva, Levi had no one to sit next to because he's not going to Reb Chanina's shiur, and therefore he wasn't going to just sit outside by himself, and therefore he came to Bavel. Now, the Gemara, what's called Fear Zeis, the Gemara concludes regarding this that we said, that Levi said Kalil is permitted. So Darish Levi ben Arda. So Levi was going around giving shiurim, so he expounded in Arda. He says Kalil Shari, like we said, he says this tiara that the woman wears is permitted. So Nafik Esrin v'Arba Kalila Makul Narda. So from the whole city of Narda, they went out with 24 women came out with tiaras. It's permitted. The Rav said, so therefore the women came out with the tiaras. Now, that was from the whole city of Narda. Whereas Darsh Rabbi Baravu b'Mechuzah, which was a wealthy city, he gave a shiur, and he says Kalil Shari, the tiara is permitted. V'nafku tam nisrei Kalil Mechadim Avu, from one cul-de-sac. There was 18 tiaras that came out, because as some explain, because they were wealthier. So from the whole Siddur they had 24. From one development, they had 18 tiaras coming up. And again, that's just relating that concept, which some of us explain a little bit deeper. But that was again that they permitted the tiara. Now, continuing on these different takshitin, which have a similar discussion regarding different versions regarding what the discussion is. So Amr Rabbi Yehuda Rav Shmuel says kamra is a distinguished belt, which there was two ways they would make this belt. Some would make it out of a plate of gold, and some would make it out of a strap that was studded with gold and precious gems. So on that, Rav Shmuel said that kamra, this belt, this chashuv belt, is shari permitted to go with into Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. Now, Ikadam, that those that say that he was talking about daruksa, the fabric version. And V'amr Rav Tzafri explains, and why is it permitted to go out with it? Mididahava atalis musheves. It's exactly like you have by a golden a cloak, which is a tachshit, it's nadormant, and they're permitted to go out with. Seirosa, when you have a studded belt, is also permitted to go out with. Now, why aren't you concerned, like we said, that a tachshit, that you're going to come to take it off? No, we're not concerned you can come take it off and show it off, because most people don't take off a belt and have their clothing fall down. So therefore, it's permitted because it's a tachshit, like we see by the talis musheves. Even though it's studded, it still doesn't take away the fact that it's a garment, and here it's a belt, and that's a talis. And you're not concerned that you're going to come to take it off, because you're not going to want your clothing to fall down. So therefore, it's permitted. Now, those that say the other version, that it's actually talking about what type of kamera is danischa. It's the hammered one, made out of gold. V'amar Rav Safan, he says, why are you allowed to go out with that golden belt? Just like you have by the belt of nobility, of kings, which is totally made out of a metal plate, and it's permitted for the prince to go out with that. As the Gemara elsewhere tells us, Kol b'nei Yisrael b'nei malachim, all the Jewish people are considered princes, and it's considered appropriate for a Jewish woman to go out with a golden hammered belt, and it's considered as a bona fide tachshit. As Taisus here explains too, that was their clothing, and they didn't have any other belt. So by the princes. Here also, this woman could go out with this kamra, because that's her clothing. And again, she's not going to take off that belt and show it off, because then her clothing is going to come down. That's what the belt is meant for, to hold up whatever garment you're wearing. And therefore, it's a tachshit. And also, we're not concerned that you're going to come to take it off and show it off, because it's there to hold up your clothing. Now, related to this kamra, Amalei Ravinu Ravashi. This kamra, which is a beautiful type of a belt, ilavi hemiyana, on top of a regular belt. Maybe let's say she's wearing the belt to hold up her dress. And then on top of that, she's wearing the kamra. A beautiful, snazzy belt. What's the halacha? Are you allowed to go out like that to Rosh Hashanah? Somebody said to him, Trey him yonne kamrat? What, 2 belts are you saying? Most definitely that's a masay. That's going to be forbidden. That's not considered as a garment that you're wearing. It's considered as an unnecessary load, and therefore that would be forbidden. Now, as Tais points out, that's specifically when you're wearing one belt right on top of the other belt, because that's not like clothing that a person wears, because if you're wearing more than one jacket and a coat, that's because of the cold. But 2 belts, what type of pleasure do you have? That's not the way of belting yourself, and therefore that's going to be considered as a masli, therefore that would be forbidden. A related discussion, Rav Ashi, he says, Hay Resuka. Resuka is a corset, some type of a girdle, that is it's a strap of a material that's wide, that goes around the woman. It's something like this. This is from the Mesivta Gemara. Isle mafrechiyasa. So if it has the narrow ties that are hanging from it to tie with, and then you could wrap it tightly around, then it's permitted, because then it's going to be tightly wrapped around the woman, and we don't have to be concerned. Maybe it's going to fall down and she's going to come to carry it. But if you don't have these straps, then also you don't have these ties, then it's going to be forbidden, because this is something that holds in the weight of the woman, and the problem is it could fall down. But if it has the ties, then it's going to be permitted. That's the status of that garment of the woman. So the Mishnah said, we had different items that the Mishnah said that although the jewelry, now I'll go out with it, it says v'loy bekatla. Says like my katla. What is that? So it's menakta fari. Menakta means like grabbing, like catching, as Taisa says, the crumbs of the bread, which is a tachshit. And Rashi says it's a garment. Basically, it was a bib that had loops like we have by our pants, where you put a wide strap all around her neck, and you have the garment hanging by her chest, which is chashuv, and it's embroidered with gold. So therefore, it was something that a woman might take off to show off. Say, wow, how would you get this thing? Some say, well, that would be like this picture, again, courtesy of the Mesivta Gemara, where here you have this garment, like some type of a bib, when she was wearing, that it should not go on her clothing. So, but it was still ornamental, and therefore that's forbidden. Or some say it's actually something like this, which is like a half of a semicircle, which is made like kalbus, which we'll explain on the next daf, which the Bach has a picture, but it's like basically like a semicircle that goes around her neck, and it's made out of gold. It holds up the shirt, close it up. That's what the katla is. But be that as it may, that's something that we're concerned that she might come to take off and show off, and therefore that's going to be forbidden to go out with it to Rosh Hashanah. Additionally, the Mishnah said that nizamim, you cannot go out with the rings to the Rosh Hashanah. Says the Gemara, what is that? That's nizmi ha'af. That's nose rings. That's forbidden. But as Rashi explains, the earrings are permitted l'katchila to go out with, is because it was very difficult for a woman to take it off and show it off, because at least in Talmudic times, the ears of the woman were covered in certain bands that covered their ears. And therefore it would be very difficult and cumbersome to take it off, therefore not concerned. But the nose rings, which are right there out in the open, that a woman might easily take off and show it to a friend, therefore that's forbidden to go out with to Rosh Hashanah. So too the Mishnah said, also a ring that does not have a signet, the Mishnah told us that she shouldn't go out with it, but if she goes out, she's going to be pater. Why is she going to be pater? Because biblically it's a tachshit. The only thing is, rabbinically, we're concerned that she might come to take it up and show it off to her friends. That's what it's going to be asur. But therefore, biblically, it's going to be permitted. Now, the idiyuk, the inference is, as really Taisa says, that we're really relying on the seif of the Mishnah, which says this explicitly. But if let's say there is a signet on it, then chayav, she would be chayav chatzis, because that's not a tachshit for a woman, and therefore it's going to be as a masoi. So says the Gemara, Alma, so obviously we see that lav tachshit, who we don't consider as a ring, is obviously an adornment, is ornamental for a woman. But if it has a signet, which is generally used for business, that we see obviously that it's not considered a tachshit for a woman, and therefore it should be chayav chatzis, like carrying a load. On that, as the Gemara contradiction of Minna, but we have a Mishnah Masechtas Kiyam that says tachshite nashim, the adornments of a woman are tameim. They're considered a kli, and therefore they're mekabel tumah. What's considered adornments of a woman? So there's a few different types of jewelry. There's katlois, there's chokers, there's nizamim, there's earrings, there's tabois, and rings. And as the Mishnah explains, the tabaz, and the ring that we said that's going to be mekabel tumah, is bein sheyesh la'achaisim, whether, and this is where the question is from, whether it has a signet, which is some type of seal at the end of the ring, and we see it is a tachshit because they're calling it tachshit nashim, bein she'enu la'achaisim, or whether it does not have a signet. But this may often also nose rings. But one thing is, we have a contradiction. Here we see that even that this is the regular ring, she'enu la'achaisim, that's ornamental. We said this is not ornamental because this is generally used for types of business. A woman doesn't generally use it, and for her it's considered like a load. It's not beautiful for her. It's not a tachshit. So our Mishnah is inferring that it's going to be chayav achatz because it's not a tachshit for the woman. And here we seem to say that even if it has a chaysim, it's going to be kabel tumah because it's considered from the tachshiti of the nashim. So there's three answers for the Gemara's question, and our Gemara is going to discuss one of them. So Amr B'Zeri says, like Kash, not difficulty. Why? The halacha of our Mishnah is Reb Nechemya, who Reb Nechemya holds that the primary function of a ring is regarding its seal, meaning the end of the ring. This is the primary thing of a ring, whether it has or not. That's the primary thing, as we'll see the theme of his halacha. Therefore, if a woman goes out with this, yes, we're in front of the halacha of the Mishnah, she's mechayv chatas, because a seal for a woman is not considered tachshit, because it's not normal for a woman to have a seal on a ring, because that's used for sending letter, for doing business, and that's generally only made for someone who's involved with some type of position of authority, and generally women in Talmudic times did not have this, and therefore that would be considered as a masli. Yeah. But the Mishnah Masechtas Kelim that says it is a tachshit is like the Rabbanan, who they say that no, the primary function of a ring is the ring part. And therefore, when a woman is wearing the ring, even with the signet, the primary thing is the tabas. that is ornamental for a woman, and therefore it's going to be Makabel Tumah. So this ring, it's interesting, how do you look at it? What's the primary function of this ring? Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Shloimy says the primary is the end result, as we'll see that's the theme of many different machlokes that they have, and therefore this is not for a woman a tachshit. The Rabbanan look at the ring part, which that is a tachshit for a woman. The time I learned the brisa. If the ring is made out of metal, but the seal is made out of almug, which is a type of wood, so tameya, says the Tanakama, the ring is going to become tamei because the primary thing is the ring, the tabaz, and that's pshutikli matris, which even a metal vessel that doesn't have a receptacle is mekabel tumah. But let's say hishal almug, let's say the ring is made out of the almug wood, and the seal is made out of metal, then tahir, it's going to be tar, because that's pshutikli eitz. The ring does not have any receptacle, and therefore that's not mekabel tumah. But Reb Nechemya says no, it is going to be tamei. Why? Because he says, even though the ring is made out of wood, which is not makabel tumah, but betabas by the ring halach achar cheisamo, you go after the seal, after the signet, like we explained. Therefore, it's going to be makabel tumah. And again, that's the same reason why in halacha the Mishnah that we said you cannot use it. Now, same type of machlokes regarding how do you define the characteristics of something. Says the Bryce like this: ba'oil, by a yoke. Halach achar sam loinav. You go after the pegs, meaning if the samloinav are made out of metal, so then it's going to be mekabel tumah. Now, the Rashi says their yoke was not like the way they were in the times of Rashi. Rather, what it was is this was the yoke on the top, and there were holes on either end of it, where it went exactly around the neck of the ox. And you would put these pegs in, and those are the similar naisav, and that is what defines the characteristic of if it's going to be mekabel tumah or not. So if these are metal, not the yoke. If these are metal, then it's going to be mekabel tumah. So there's a getin type of samach and aleph, but koilov, which is some type of a display board, which is like a type of a pillar, which is wide on the bottom and it gets narrow as it goes to the top, it's like a triangle, and it's a movable thing that the storekeeper would put in front of the window of his store, and he would have nails stuck into it, and they would hang on that belts or straps, stuff to sell. So halach achar mas mereisav, there you go after the nails, if it's mekabel tumah not. So to besulim by a ladder, halach achar shlibaysav, you go after the rungs. Uva arsav, and by a balanced scale, which it was a large scale which was to use to weigh for wool or wax or copper, and it was made out of wood. Halach achar shal, you go after the chains that are hanging on it, and if it's made out of metal, then it's going to be mekabel tumah. They disagree. They say no, hakol hoylech achar hamayim. Everything goes after the support, which, as Rashi explains, talking about all the cases that we said, they're exactly the opposite. So by the ring, it's the ring itself that supports the chaisim. That's going to be the primary thing, not the seal, not like Reb Nechemya. So too by the yoke. What's going to be the defining characteristic of its mekabel tumah not is the yoke part, which that supports the pegs. So too by the display board, by the kailav, it's the nails that's being supported by the display board. The display board is the primary. The ladder, it's the ladder that supports the rungs, because that's what the rungs are hung onto. By the scale, it's what's called the eitz arach, the large piece of wood, that's a beam that the chains are hanging from. So that is what's supporting them. So that defines them. So we have this integral machlekes about how do you define the essence of something. Reb Nechemya held that the ring that has the seal, what's the primary, what defines it? He says it's the chaisim that's the ikar, meaning to say it's the functionality of the thing, which is the end part of it essential, which you're using. You're using the rungs, you're using the chains. That's how you define the thing, and that's going to define if that thing is something that's mekabel tumah, it's going to be mekabel tumah. But the Chacham held no, it's what supports the whole thing. It's the maimid, what supports it. So therefore they held by the ring, even though it has a signet, But this signet's not a taksha for the woman, but we don't look at it as the signet. We look at it what supports it, and the ring is what's supporting the signet, and therefore they consider that in the Mishnah B'Sefetz Kelim as the tachshita b'nashim. Our Mishnah goes like Reb Nechemia, who says that no, we look at it as the end part of it, what you're using, which is the signet, and that's not a taksha, and therefore that's why if a woman went out with that to Rosh Hashanah, she would be chayiv as a chatas, where again, according to the Chachamim, it would actually not be, it would be considered as a regular ring, which would be asim in the Rabban. Some of the things we learned about in today's daf and Shabbos Daf Nun Tes was a continuation of the brayso from the previous daf, which we said that even if the clapper is taken away, but it still retains its tumah. And that was a question about why. Why is it still makabel tumah if the clapper is not there anymore? It should be like a shever kli. It should be like a broken vessel. So we had from the previous daf Abaya, who said, which was rejected. He says because a hedge can put it back. We had Rava and Rabbi Yisrael Chanina, which is who Rashi uses to discuss the different opinions of Rabbi Yechanan. He says, since you could bang it on top of the klicheres, so that still has its utility of making noise. On today's daf, Rabbi Yechanan says, no, since you could give a child to drink with, so therefore that will retain its function as a kli, and therefore even though it lost its clapper, it's going to be makabel tumah. Problem is, the Gemara says he rejects himself. Now, as a preface to where we see he rejects himself, is because by the halach of Medrash, the Brisa tells us that we say, Amoid v'nas malachtenu. Get up, let us do our work with it. Now, interestingly, unlike all of Shas, Rashi explains that there's two dinim in this context, in this concept of Amoid v'nas malachtenu. First, there is what's called in the beginning of the Tumah, which is the classic way that this phrase is used many times throughout Shas, is that it's not makabel tumah Medrash in the first place, which is because this is meant. It's not meant for sitting, and therefore get up. It's not going to have the tumah of medrash. Then there's also what we're introducing here in our sugya, which actually the primary element we're using it for, the way Rashi explains, is for seif tumah. Let's say something is 3 by 3 tfachim, but then it's split, so now it's not fit for its original work, which was meant for sitting, because even though it's still 3 by 3 etzbais, and it's still a kli, doesn't make a difference. We can't use it for what it was originally used for, which was for sitting. Therefore, it's not going to have any more the tumah of medrash. Now, that was what the Brisa says. Then we have a machlekes amayram between Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yechanan. If this din is also by tumas mes, which is what we're talking about regarding the bell and the clapper, regarding tumas mes. Rabbi Lazar says no, it doesn't apply. It's only by tumas medrash, like the pasuk there is talking about by the medrash of yeshev yishkav, which is, like we said, a future tense, has to be something that's designated for sitting, which we also have the other halacha with that. Rabbi Yechanan says even by tameh mes. So what we see from that is, what do you see by tameh mes? That has to have melachtoi harishayna. Now, wait a second. That obviously means say it's not sufficient to be used for the child drinking, because even though it's still worth of malacha, it does not have malacha rishayna. Malacha rishayna was to make noise, now you're using for drinking. Gemara says you're right. Epach kamaisa. You have to switch around the first machlekes. It must be that Rabbi Yechanan was the one that says that it's rola kisha gabe klicheres, and the other opinion, Rava, was saying that it's that you could drink from it. Now, why we switch around the first one, not the second one? Because we learn a different teaching of Rabbi Yechanan that says clearly that you need me'im malacha rishayna. Where do we find that? Because we have a Mishnah that says that a metal shoe of an animal is makabel tumah. What human function does that have that it's going to be considered as a kli? So we have Rab that says you could drink water from it. We have another opinion that says you can anoint oil with it. Rabbi Yechanan, and that's the point, he says no, it's specifically because you could use as shoes to run away with in war. So you see that he requires Me'im Malacha Rishayna, which was as a sandal, as a minel, and therefore you see that he requires Me'im Malacha Rishayna. Therefore we switch around the first machlek is he obviously is the one who says Rola Kisha Gabak Lichas. We went back to continue the halacha of the Mishnah that we said different ornaments that a woman's not allowed to go out with, and one of them was the Ir Shel Zav, which we said is a Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. It's the golden city of Yerushalayim, either like a clasp or it's like some type of a tiara, some type of a crown. We had three opinions in the Brisa actually. We had the first opinion. Remei says that she's actually chayv achat as a masli. It's not considered an ornament. We had like the halacha of our Mishnah, which was no, she shouldn't go out. But she's pater, because it is a tachshit, but we're concerned she might come to take off and show it off. And then Rabbi Eliezer interestingly says, no, she could even go out like a tchila. Why? He agrees to the halacha of Dima Shaf Mechavia. But since only Isha Chajuba wears it, Isha Chajuba is not going to take it off and show it off. We had a similar discussion regarding the kalila, which is a tiara, that machlek is if it's permitted or not. of Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. We had two different versions in them Machlekes. Either it's specifically by the nischa, which is the plate of gold. There was their Machlekes regarding, there actually everyone held it's going to be aser, because it's very chasher, it's going to come to show it off. The Machlekes was by aruksa, by the one that's fabric, but it's studded with ornaments. That's the Machlekes. What's the primary? Is it the anischa or is it the aruksa? If it's the anischa that's primary, she's going to show it off. If the aruksa, she's not going to show it off. Or actually a more lenient interpretation, which is no, by aruk 7 agrees that's going to be mutter, because it's made out of fabric. Machlekes was by nischa. Wait a second, anischa, shouldn't that be aser? The one who says aser is because we're concerned you're going to come to take it off and show it off. The other one says no, it's isha chashuva wears, and therefore she's not going to come to take it off and show it off. Therefore Shmuel said it's going to be permitted. And we had that Levi permitted Kalila, and then obviously he understood that Rav has passed away, and we saw the difference between the cities, the wealthy, the more affluent, the less affluent. Then we spoke about Kamra, which is a very expensive type of a belt that we said is shari. Now we have two versions in the Kamra. Either it's talking about aruksa, which is a studded belt, which is like a cloak that has gold in it, which it's a tachshit. And moreover, we're not concerned that you're going to take it off. By your garment, you don't consider you taking it off. It's not like a jewelry that you'll take off. And additionally here, by your belt, we don't want your trousers to fall down, so we're not concerned you're going to come to take it off. Or, it was actually talking about anischa, which is actually, the belt is totally made out of gold. And there's like the Avnei Shamalachim that, yeah, it's considered as a tachshit, because old Jewish people consider like princes worthy of wearing a golden belt. And also, we're not concerned that you can take it off again, because then the clothing is going to fall down. Then regarding two belts, we said that it's aser because that's considered as a masli. We spoke about a rasuka, which is some type of a girdle, that's permitted if there are those ties to make sure it doesn't fall down, because if not, we're concerned it might fall down, the woman might come to carry it. We had in the Mishnah that it's aser to a woman to go out with katla, which the Gemara explained it's a crumb catcher, some type of a bib, which again it's ornamental, she might come to take it off and show it off. And also nizam, which the Gemara explains is nose rings, which Rashi says that, but earrings in Talmudic times was too cumbersome to take off, and therefore that's going to be permitted. The Mishnah also said that she now go out with a ring that doesn't have a signet, because that's a tachshit for a woman. But again, we're concerned she might come to show off the regular ring that doesn't have a signet. The inference is, but if it has a signet, it has a seal, then she would be chayiv, because obviously that's not a tachshit. Problem is, the Mishnah Masechtas Kalim says it's one of the tachshitei nashim, even if it has a chaysim, and that it is mekabel tuma, so therefore, why should she be chayav chatas? It's a tachshit. And that says the Gemara, that Mishnah is going like Rabbanon, that the primary, how you define it, is the tabas, which is the maimid, what supports the signet is the ring, therefore the ring is a tachshit. Our Mishnah is going like Reb Nechemia, which he holds that the primary thing is the function of the thing, which is the chaysim, and that's not the norm for a woman to wear a signet, and therefore that's not considered tachshit nashim, and therefore she would be chayav chatas, and mentioned many different items: a ladder, a yoke, a board that the stores use, or a scale, and that's in general. How do you define an item? Do you define it on what supports it, or its primary function? Our Mishnah goes like Reb Nechemia, that it's the function, and the function is the chaysim, therefore that's not going to be considered as a tachshit of a woman, therefore it's going to be chayav chatas. And the Rabbanan in the Mishnah Masechtas Kalim goes on the maimon, and therefore since the maimon is the ring, and that's normal for a woman, although the chaysim part is not, but therefore that would still be considered as tachshit and nashim, and therefore it's going to be mekabel tuma. Thank you to any time for hosting us.